What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Please note I was a 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, and one of the many things I do when I have time, not from resting, which I hardly do these days, is I am the host and co-producer of monthly online conversations for fathers that are co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization, and Dove Men Care. And it's a Sunday afternoon, 5 p.m. I'm looking on my watch because I need to know what date it is, July 12th. And if you know a little bit about the Dr. Vibe Show, we have started another set of epic conversations called Black Canada Talking. So Black Canada Talking is a live online event that provides Black Canadians opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories that are of importance to them. And I started a few weeks ago, and now I'm doing the best to keep my momentum. So every 5 p.m. Eastern time, Sundays, check it out. We have outstanding Black Canadians here sharing. And today we have an epic conversation that's going to happen. It's all about raising Black boys from a Black Canadian women's perspective. And I have three outstanding Black women here to share with us today. I'm just going to give brief bios. You can go on my website because they're all quite extensive because they're doing beautiful things, not only professionally, but personally with their family. So the first friend I'm going to introduce, I've known her for a little while, but for a minute, Nicole Waldron. She's an event planning specialist, inspirational speaker, podcaster, and activist. Yeah, I got all that stuff. And she works tirelessly for the betterment of her community. She believes in partnering with various individuals and companies that work to enhance the lives of others. Ms. Nicole, how are you?
I am good, Dr. Vibe. Thank you for having me on.
Well, it's about time. You've been like invading all my live streams for the last
They're so good.
week. So it's finally wonderful to have you finally on and sharing with the audience today, and looking forward to, you always have epic conversations to share. So it's par for the course. Next up, we have Tanya Hayles, and I had the pleasure of meeting her at least this way the day before Father's Day. Myself and Tanya were interviewed by Angie Seth from CTV National News, or CTV News Channel, talking about Black fatherhood, Black families, Black parenting, Black motherhood. And Tanya really knocked it out of the park. And a little bit about Tanya: she's an award-winning event planner and creative storyteller using various mediums to evoke emotions, create change, and magnify moments. She's also the founder of Black Moms Connection, an online global village of, check this out, family, 15,000 people, and a nonprofit providing culturally relevant programs and resources to educate and empower the Black mother and her family. Welcome for the first time, but not the last time, to the Dr. Vibe Show, Tanya Hayles. How you doing?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
I am. Oh, great to have you back. It's great to have you today. How are things with you?
Good. Just trying to beat the heat and, see what these Wi-Fi settings are going to be like. I'm online, kids online, everyone's online. So okay. That's my life these days.
Excellent. Well, thank you for taking time out of your positive, productive schedule to share with us today. And then finally, we call this Black Canada Talking. So Black Canada is not just concentrated in Toronto, Montreal, and Atlantic. So I've gone way out on the left coast for this lady. She is on the left coast on Vancouver Island, in Victoria. I had the pleasure of being on a conversation with her about a week and a half ago. I hosted a conversation, and this lady was dropping some serious knowledge bombs. So I said, I got to get her here some way, somehow. So we have Dr. Lisa Gunderson, is a award-winning educator, community speaker, organizer, leader, and an equity consultant and trainer for various institutions in Canada and the United States, focusing on issues that impact BIPOC. Now, who knows what that acronym means? Not the ladies on the call. Does anyone else know what that means? Probably not. So it's Black, Indigenous people of color. Yes, there we go. Populations, especially on racial identity and mental wellness. Dr. G is a frequent guest speaker to various organizations and to K-12 and post-secondary institutions. For the first time, and definitely not the last time, welcome, Dr. G.
Hey. Hi, everyone. From Victoria.
Yeah.
Ooh, West Coast in the house.
Left Coast. And do you like the hat that you're putting on today? Is that real or what, folks?
Oh, yep, that's right.
Well, I am so glad to have each one of you. And before we
So
really
honored to be here.
no problem. And people who are watching live, please put your comments in. We'll be putting them up in real time thanks to BIA Media. We've got Claude Diamond from, I don't know, Arizona, California. I don't know. Sarah Youngo is in here from Ottawa. Please put your comments in. Serena Wills from DC. So people are in the house today. So before we get into our real conversation, just want to check in. How are each of you doing, like really doing right now? Because it's been an interesting 2020.
No one wants to go.
Okay, I'm going to go Nicole. I'm going to pick Nicole first.
Oh boy, always putting me in the hot seat. You know what? I'm better today than I was yesterday.
Okay.
And it's been a wild ride the last couple months. It's been a wild ride the top of the year, but we have learned how to bleed while leading. As we're bleeding while we're leading, and and continue to heal. So I'm doing better. I'm doing better. Good support systems in place.
Excellent. Okay, Tanya, you're next.
I kind of echo Nicole. I think it's day by day. Sometimes it's even hour by hour. You can start your days off feeling like, okay, I'm going to do it today. I'm going to be productive. And then it doesn't take much, I think, to derail and just figure out like what your capacity is. Friday, I was just beat. All these conversations that media wants to have about talking about race is great, but we've been talking about it, and so it's been a very very exhausting, I'd say 6 weeks, but then again, it's also been a very exhausting year. So just trying to take breaks and find self-care by any means necessary.
Wonderful. And I want to also shout out from New York City, Kevin Messam. How we doing? And also all the way from Edinburgh, Scotland.
Woo!
Fraser.
Wow.
House. So there we go. So we're not only on 2 different countries, we're on 2 different continents right now. You ladies are putting in the fire. Dr. G, how you doing?
I described it recently to a friend that I feel like I'm on the downside of a roller coaster. When you go up on the roller coaster and it's like, that's how I've been feeling for the past couple of months. That is just going like that. And I'm waiting for the place where we enter. So it's just been a lot. We've had in our family, I have a grade 12 who graduated in 2020. And is heading out to Cali for university. Wow. There's a lot going on, 4 birthdays in COVID style. And like the other lady said, the media and what's happening within our communities out here, it's a lot. But the roller coaster analogy, that's like the best one. And some days I'm gripping and other days I'm like, yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well done. Well said. So let's get into our first conversation piece today, ladies. What are some of the challenges raising a Black son or Black sons, not only traditionally, but also what's it been like in 2020? So it's a 2-part question. What was it like before 2020, and what's it been like since 2020?
Is this for anyone?
Yes, you're all gonna answer anyways.
Okay.
Who wants to be brave? I like to create brave and safe spaces.
Okay, I'll go.
Okay.
So my son is 7, and the challenge is, so I'm also a single parent, and I know that within the Black community, there's always tons of feelings and thoughts and opinions about women and their ability to raise boys into men. I'm very adamant that I am only a parent that can parent from the standpoint of, who I am and what I know and what I believe. I want my son to be happy. I want him to be healthy, both physically and emotionally. And I do what I can to make sure that I'm creating a good life for him. And so, there's definitely challenges with that, because I know, you know, at some point in time, society is going to stop seeing him as this cute little, you know, preschooler, or not quite preschooler, but, you know, 6-7-year-old, and they're going to start aging him and start assuming things about him. And so really trying to protect him from that as much as I possibly can without breaking his innocence, so to speak.
Who wants to go next?
Go ahead, Dr. G.
we both breathed at the same time. I can feel you across the country.
Oh, God.
I have two sons, one who's 14 and the other who's 18. And my sons are biracial, bi-ethnic. And so there's an additional layer for me in that piece. And one of the pieces in terms of pre-COVID in the challenges is how to raise my sons to be Black men without all the stereotypes and the boxes that society, and especially I feel a white supremacist society, puts them in. And so there are two pieces to it, right? It's the racialized aspect of them being Black persons, and then it's the other piece to it of being men. And when you put that kind of intersection together, what defines a Black man, and what I really am trying to do and have been trying to do is challenge them in understanding what does that really mean and what does that really look like for them. And as men, how can they use their privilege and their power as men to help deal with some of the misogyny and stuff that especially happens within our community. But at the same time, they're Black men. And so understanding the risks that come with that, and the stereotypes that come with that, and how they can carve what that means for themselves. So a lot of it has not changed, I think, kind of post-COVID, because we've been dealing with these issues for, in my opinion, hundreds of years. What's happened, though, I've noticed post-COVID, is that it's actually allowed a little bit of them being able to communicate somewhat better with one another in terms of other Black young men, because we're all forced to be in a space. And so if they're doing like a Zoom call with each other, everybody knows where they're at, right? It's like, you can't say you're not home because people know where you're at. So in a strange way, it's allowed for there to be a bit more community in one sense. And then of course, with what happened with Mr. Floyd, a lot of youth that they didn't even know were around have come up as well. So I think the challenges are the same, but there's also some opportunities that have come about as well with regard to COVID, which I know we'll be talking about later.
No problem. Nicole.
Okay, I'm going to take myself off mute. Sorry.
No problem.
You know, before COVID and after COVID. So if I was to go before COVID, my son's 25. And so there's a difference then and now. So when he was growing up, you know, thinking about the education piece was a part of my thought process. Getting through school, getting through elementary school, what he needed for high school, and preparing to go on after high school, and making sure that he had the right supports and understanding my rights as a parent. Finding the best ways to fortify him as he went through the different processes of school. So that was one part of it. And then the other part, as growing up, the other concerns and challenges is finding mentors. It was always hard to find good mentors and people that will be consistent and that you feel safe with, because you hear all these horror stories. So as moms, you're going, you hear of the Big Brothers clubs and all these different clubs. But as for Black men mentoring young boys, it was so hard to find, and it's still hard to find. People would say that they were going to mentor and they didn't show up, or they were not consistent. So that was another part of it. Also, being a single parent, finances, the sacrifices that you make. Like I knew giving up certain things so that I would be home when he got here. So becoming self-employed, but probably not always having the right resources in place, but doing it anyways because I wanted to be present. And as he got older, and now the concerns are his safety when he goes out. And I remember even as a teenager, I would say, the hood on the head. And he'd be like, but I like my hood and it's cold outside. And I'm like, you're a Black young man going outside. they can't see your heart through the hood. They just see the hood. And people have been socialized as how they view Black men. So, it's those things. And now with COVID added to it, it's the boredom, it's the wanting to go out, it's the wanting to see friends, and staying safe with the illness. So that's some of it in a nutshell.
That's quite a nutshell. But already there's a number of conversation pieces I want us to dig down a little bit deeper in that. And I know that one of the first times I spoke to Lisa, she talked about hoodies, and it leads into my conversation piece. For those who are foreign to the Black environment, there's something called the talk. And basically what the talk is that parents prepare their children for the realities of life, especially a life where they'll be in places where they don't see faces that look like theirs and may not get fair and respectful treatment. So I'd like to know if any of you ladies have had the talk with any of your sons, and has there been an additional talk, especially since the goings on recently, aka a George Floyd incident? Who wants to go first?
Go, Dr. Lisa.
You're on mute.
You go this time. You let me go first the first time.
No. You're having your own tete-a-tete, so I'm going to let you go.
We're loving it. The talk kind of was not much different than earlier on in life. But I actually asked some other questions, like what I recognize, especially with boys, and I learned this as my son was in high school. We brought in a facilitator who really spoke to when boys speak and they want to talk. It's very different. They like to talk to you when they're busy or when you're busy. So that's a great clue for moms. And we had an expert bring us in to deal with that. So I asked him the question, now, when you were in high school, what racial experiences did you have? And the answers I got now are different to the answers I got then. And so I say to any mom listening out there, especially if you have a young man in your household, really listen to what they're not saying, really listen to any change in behavior, because I didn't always catch that he was experiencing racism, because sometimes young men don't want to worry their moms, especially if you're a single parent.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't call it the talk. I call it the talks. I think one of the things that happens, it's almost like talking about sex. Like we have the talk, and then everybody's sitting there going, gosh, when is this going to end? Just stop. I think it's really important for us to always have a conversation that's developmentally appropriate throughout their entire lives. And so that's kind of how I've run it in my family. And that's because racism doesn't have a stop date. It's happening all the time in different ways in different spaces. And so we could just be sitting around dinner, and then my young son says to me, yeah, Mom, some kid asked me for the N pass today. And the N pass, for those of you who don't know, is when a non-Black person asks a Black person permission to use the N word, right? So for me, there's kind of three spaces where this comes up. And the first one is just real life events. We came from the United States about 8-9 years ago. And at the time, Trayvon Martin incident occurred when my son was probably about, I think, 11, 12. And as I mentioned, as a biracial, bi-ethnic man, historically, and how I see him is as a Black man, but he has to define how he sees himself. And when he got killed, I asked him, if that had happened to your one friend who's white, would he have been killed? And he said, no. And I said, what about your friend who's Black? Would he have been killed? He said, yes. I said, what about you? And he said, I would have been killed too. And it was very clear to me, and by how he defines himself and how we define him. And he actually started wearing hoodies then, has a way almost to reclaim. And it was a strange balance, because we also understand his safety, and especially here on the West Coast where there's not a lot of us. So those stereotypes even amplify even more. because there's not a lot of people who have interactions with young Black men. So for me, real-time events provide opportunity to speak, and movies, like we would watch a movie or TV show and then just kick it. Something like you said, we're just sitting there talking, and then all of a sudden, I would just say to any mom out there, if your son ever wants to just talk with you, I don't care what time of night it is, go with that. He and I were up to like 3:00 in the morning, and I was just like, damn, I got work and I know this is not good for his health. He needs to be in bed. But then I'm like, my son is talking to me for 2 hours. I'm going to sit here and just go with that. And for the younger ones, when they were younger, sometimes we use too many words. And so art is a great way. And there's, some things, if we don't want kids to speak, to have them draw how they're feeling. And I found that worked really well for my younger son, who's really kind of artistic too. I could see something's bothering him, and then he draws out what's happening. Or I have a set of emotion cards and I give it to them, and they're able to pull it out. And because sometimes they don't have the language for what it is that they're feeling. So I think those three things, real-time events and movies, songs, things like that, has a catalyst. And then other ways to connect with them besides using our words, I think is something I would give out to moms.
Okay. Tanya?
Parents in general.
Yep.
Amazing advice from both my co-panelists. My son is 7, so I'm still in the early stages of where Nicole and Dr. G are at, and I'm hopeful that I can get to y'all level with your sons. For me, I haven't sat down and had a serious let's talk about race conversation. I like to say that my son still believes in the tooth fairy, and I think he's on the tail end of believing in Santa. And I want to protect that for as long as I possibly can. He's there's going to come a point where he's going to be taller than me and have a deep voice and "What's up, Mom?" and all this stuff. And so I want to claim kids being kids and children being children. Society already ages our kids, right? They look at my son because he's tall and he's eloquent. They think he's like 10, 11, 12. I'm like, he's 7. And I'm very quick to correct people that do that, because I think it's really important that we're just like, hey, no, you're not going to age my son. He's not a teenager, right? Or a preteen. He's not even close. And so for me, one of the conversations we did have was, we went to a new school. He started a new school in September in a very, affluent area, homogenized, not very diverse. And one day his vice principal called me to say like, oh, he was horsing around with another classmate in the hallway, and the other little boy got injured. And I was like, okay. And the way she was coming at me was that my son assaulted this little boy. And so I had to dig a little deeper, and I was like, well, what happened? And basically they were horsing around because that's what 7-year-old boys do. This other boy started to fall. My son grabbed his arm to try and help him from not falling. And I'm like, see how those two things are very, very different. And so when we were walking home from school, I said to my son, like, hey, listen, you don't get to do the same things that your classmates do. Unfortunately, it's just the case. You're new to this school. These teachers don't know you. This principal doesn't know you. They don't know me either. And, you just have to be really careful. So that was the first time that I had any type of racial conversation with him. And like Dr. G said, using art. So there's a show on Netflix, I think it's still on Netflix, Raising Dion. So it's about this little boy who becomes a superhero. And there's actually a specific episode where the principal is being racist. And so the mom has to explain that. And so I watched that with my son and, made sure like everyone else has said, these kids, they'll just pop up out of nowhere with these random questions when you're driving and you gotta like, whoa, where did this come from? So you really have to be prepared. They might not ask you when you think they're going to ask you, and just say, I don't know the answers to that question. I think parents, we so want to always have the answers and say, let's learn about that together. Let's look this up. Let's think about, what do you watch? Who are your friends? Like you said, make it age irrelevant. And, it will be a lifelong conversation. This is not just a talk, like Dr. G said.
Excellent. Oh, go ahead.
No, there are just two things that were said that just made me think. most of our kids, and again, depending on where you live, but here around grade 2 or 3 are going to get some sort, be called a name, or say it's something like your skin looks like dirt or looks like crap or something. And that's why I think it is really important to kind of prepare our children for comments like that, again, in a certain way. So how people end up doing that, whether it's letting them know that I don't believe in a colorblind philosophy. I believe in color equity. And so it's letting them understand that, people are going to maybe say something to you and that's not okay. Like we have a lot of people trying to touch our hair and stuff, grade 1, 2, 3, and teaching them that, no, it's okay for you to say, don't do that. That's not okay. They don't need to get into a big, eloquent speech about it, but being able to start to kind of train them in how to prepare for some of that stuff. And using the film or show is a wonderful example. When you talked about getting a call from the school, I just want to hit on that because that's one of the biggest issues I have, especially raising Black boys, is how they're perceived. And I just had my older son, who's tall, I got a call saying that a teacher thought he was being aggressive and went off on something. And I said, hold on a second. I said, what do you mean by aggressive? Because that's a very racially loaded term. And he's like, oh, no, da, da, da. And I said, no, you need to understand that as a Black person, I don't not want you to use the term aggressive when you're talking about my child. Tell me exactly what happened. Did he raise his voice? Well, no. Did he come up on this person? Well, no. Did he do this? Well, no. Then I'm like, then what happened? And he was just kind of quiet. And I really had to, and then the counselor's like, well, the teacher who did it wasn't white. I go, that has nothing to do with anything. I need you to understand that you do not use that term when you're talking to a Black mother about her child. So explain to me exactly what happened. And they couldn't. And so that's the kind of thing that I already know they're going to think of me as the angry Black mom. So I'm like, whatever. But taking moments in time to also school certain people is really important. But we have to balance it with, I was being very mindful and careful of balancing it with making sure it doesn't flash back on my son, who has to still be there. So as I'm telling you the story, and I did do that piece, there's so much more I could have done, which I chose not to, because I'm like, my child's got to graduate in 2 years and he's going to need a letter of recommendation and he's going to need certain things. So I had to kind of balance how I was going to be with all of that. And I just am throwing that out there because that does not make you weak if you pick and choose when and where and how to deal with your school and your children. You have to do what's best. I understand that I have to have a balance and I'm waiting for him to graduate so I can do other things, but be kind to yourself, be gentle to yourself as a parent, do what you can do. And also don't give yourself grief if you don't do everything you think you should do. I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. Dr. G, when you were dropping, and Nicole, I'm coming to you because I saw both Nicole and Tanya nodding their heads. So, ladies, I know you have something you add on to that, so make it happen.
So, I really love what Dr. G had to say, and it was part of what I was alluding to at the beginning. You have to get involved with your schools because they got to know, this personification of the angry Black mom. I got involved with the PTAs in elementary school and in high school. I became the advocate, not just for my son, but for other sons, for other daughters, having the conversations, letting them get to know me so they didn't come at me from a defensive or point of view, and I was very slow to speak and not being offended easily, but not being afraid to know my rights. And it's important as parents, and as you talk to other teachers, talk to teachers who are friends of yours or in the education system. Learn your rights as a parent, so you know when to have the conversations, how to have the conversations, and when to approach. And then and Dr. G's wrapped up everything else really nicely right there. And then to touch on something Tanya said, your son having the conversation with you in the car. I will try. I don't know if I could even find the book, but I can find the lecturer who came to our school when my son was at Neil McNeil High School, and it was an all boys high school. And I was purposeful when I chose an all boys high school in the beginning, because some people may think I was a little wrong, but I didn't want him to be distracted, at least in grade 9, with the short skirts and the stuff like that. I wanted him to be focused. I mean, it wasn't a perfect scenario. But what that did was I had to learn how, to think like a man, not like a woman. I had to talk with my man brain on. Boys speak differently and communicate differently than women. And as moms, we have to recognize that. And so boys will come at you when you're busy, and sometimes you go like, but I'm busy, I'm on a phone. Don't you think about it? Your sons always come at you when you're on the phone, you're watching a show, you're driving the car. There is something in their mechanism, and I wish I could remember all the, the psychological pieces. But the point is, pay attention to those moments when they come in the middle of your busyness, because sometimes that's the time they have the most important thing to say to you. And listen to when they don't, when you ask them about their day, sometimes you have to find new ways to ask them about their day. Don't ask them the same way every day, because it becomes like wah, 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 wah in their ear, So what happened at, school today? Well, okay, but what happened at math class? So be specific in your conversations with your children, and listen to what they're not saying, and listen to their body language. Sometimes as parents, and we, we have all these books and stuff, but it really comes through. I really believe as a mom, and as a Black mom, your community, your village is very important around you. This conversation, like having the conversations with moms of different age groups, coming from different parts of the world with different experiences, it's what helps you to be a better mom. And I think if we have those courageous conversations as moms, if we come out and say like, you know what, I'm not too sure about this today, because nobody's doing it perfectly. I know the things that I consider errors along the way, but those were my learning curves. And now, even with this conversation, it made me stop and reflect about, oh, what could I have done differently? Not better, but differently, because definitely. I would do better. We do better when we know better. So I'm not going to chastise myself as a mom, but how do we help each other along this journey of parenthood, as a momship? And one more thing. Don't ever wish me happy Father's Day. Can I tell you? I can never do the job for a guy. I appreciate anybody who wants to give me sentiments on Father's Day, but especially for single Black moms, don't wish us happy Father's Day. We're not fathers. We can't be fathers. We will never be fathers.
All right.
I'm gonna shut up on that one.
And yeah, we haven't heard from you for a while, but you're doing a lot of head like this. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, Nicole and Dr. G are gonna get chiropractic bills from me because the way I'm nodding my head. I'm just like, where's my church? Where's the church collection plate? Like all of it together. Right. Thank you, church fan, Nicole. All of it. Absolutely all of every single solitary thing that they said. I don't need to repeat it because we only have an hour, but yes.
Well, hold on.
Especially that last part.
I told you we may go past an hour. I have a feeling we just started the conversation.
I know we're only at question 2 and it's 5:35.
All right.
Yeah, man.
But so while I have the opportunity, I'm just going to catch up with some comments, especially from Serena Wills. She said here first, yes, you get your day started with this beautiful list of things to do, but sometimes you just have to lay the agenda to rest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Day by day, and sometimes minute by minute with kids.
Yes.
He then says, yes, birthday COVID style. We have one over here next month, a Zoom virtual party, and then a birthday drive-through party with social distancing, masks, etc. So seriously, differently times. I want to hail up Joan Pierre as always. Thank you for stopping by. Serena again says, my son is 8, turning 9. As soon as one mom said they are growing out of their cute phase, and even just wearing a hood on his head is going to start looking differently, even though he's just using it because he's cold. Fraser from Edinburgh says, my son, I had Fraser. Okay, hold on. I got Fraser here now. Just give me a second. I'm moving too fast. He says, more of the African Black kids in Edinburgh, some get caught up in the hoodie culture, mixed with white kids groups as it depends on the school they go to in the area. Serena again says, my son is 8 and sometimes he will not tell me things he doesn't want to worry me.
Mhm.
I told him the other month, more than ever, I need to know how he is feeling. It's a work in process.
Mhm.
She also says, yes, it's hard when they ask you questions that you cannot answer. She also says, when they come in the middle of your busyness, I will definitely keep that in mind. Ryan Singh says, fathers be fathers. He agrees. And Fiona says, when my son, now 35, was a teenager, we attended Proud Past Promising Future at Harambee Counseling Center. Best 3 months ever to establish great communication through the teen years. So we are caught up with wonderful comments. Keep them coming, folks. Next conversation piece. How much support are you getting from any family, friends, or community as in regards to helping raising your Black son or sons? Are you getting, I know Nicole mentioned a few moments ago about community support. Are you or have been getting that community, family support? Are you getting it? Are you getting enough of it? Is it there when you ask for it?
I don't think you can ever get enough. But what I would say is, I was very intentional in the village. I was very intentional when I choose my son's godparents. And I made sure that I had godparents that it's not just, having somebody go there and go to the church or whatever. If something happened to me, would that person be able to pour into my son, be there for my son through thick and thin, be there for me? Like I chose Joan Pierre as my son's godmother. Kwame Williams is my son's godfather. Two people, not just because of who they are in the community, but because of their integrity. And then my family, also there, my mom, my sisters around me, and the extended family, and recognizing that the extended family, not just the blood relatives, but the people who come into your lives along the way, were very important. And the friends that I had. And then recognizing when someone is not healthy for you or healthy for your child, and especially boys, they can become very protective. And sometimes and I will say especially to the single Black moms, especially when you're bringing partners into your life, you have to be mindful of that. So it's all about the accountability piece, finding that other mom that you can be accountable to, but also finding a male person that your son can identify with, that they can either go to or you can go to for advice in those times when you need it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say that same thing. The village is super important, especially when you are a single parent from the onset. And also you have to recognize that your village is going to shift and change as you grow and as your child grows. You're not going to be the same person. You're not going to affiliate with the same people, and that's okay, right? I think what we try to hold on to relationships because I've known such and such for such a long time, or X, Y, and Z, and reasons and seasons and lifetimes, and not everyone is meant to be there for forever. And the people that got me through the breastfeeding era, which was super difficult, are not the same people who helped, pray over me when he was a toddler, and the same ones who, jumped in when he became angry about not having a father. There's different pockets of people who have come in and out of my life. But what he knows, to be the consistent core group of aunties, uncle surrogates and stuff like that is super key. Yeah, I think that for me, that's why Black Moms Connection started in the first place. I wanted a place where I could go and ask, Black questions about Black motherhood and get answers and not be gaslit and not be told that those kind of questions are irrelevant and they don't matter. And so I'm happy that BMC is very much the village for some folks. Some women lean heavily into it. We support moms through miscarriages and infertility and, co-parenting and all sorts of other challenges that they're dealing with. For me, because of my kind of status in that group, I kind of like have to create my own subgroup of safe spaces and such. But I'm super grateful that other people have seen value in it, and it continues to grow because it is a safe space for Black moms to be themselves.
Wonderful. Dr. G?
Yeah, I think I'm going to answer this in two ways. Family, friends, and community are critical. And what's even more important is for me that my kids understand that they're welcomed in community anytime, and also modeling how they can create what they need if it's not there. So when they go out in the world, they know that they can always create a Black community space for themselves. It's really about being really intentional. I think here on the West Coast, I think we have a particular challenge. It's not any much different than being in California compared to being, say, in the South in the US or on the East, and that our Black communities are very small. So where you could go to Toronto and maybe find not only a bunch of different things, but then broken down like, Jamaican, Ghanaian, and this kind of thing. We're working with 1 to 2% of our population here on the West Coast being Black. And so because of that, we have to be, I think, very, very intentional and seeking out community. And it's here, which is wonderful. I have found that one of the things that I've noticed is for my sons, because their father is not Black, that I have to be very intentional in finding them Black models and Black male models. And that has been something I'm very sensitive to and aware, and also because they also play sport, and how that interacts, especially as a Black male playing sport and all that goes with it. I'm very, very intentional in looking for Black men who are going to pour into my children a certain type of attitude, a certain type of belief, a certain type of feeling. And so I really am very much looking for that, because I find that it's very important for them to be around young Black men who do not carry on some of the kind of stereotypes that hurt our young people as well. So I'm really kind of aware of that and trying to teach them about that as well. In our community, because there's so many different groups, like in our African Heritage Association here on Vancouver Island, we have 50 different types of communities represented in there. And the beauty of that is my children are learning that we're not a homogeneous group as Black people. We are a heterogeneous group of people. We have different foods, different cultures, different languages, and learning that has been an incredible gift. But it also means we have certain parts of our communities as well that still emphasize certain pieces that I don't want them to take on. And it's, for example, homophobic stuff, transphobic stuff, this idea of what it means to be a man. Like, there's some things that we need to talk about within our own communities that need not to be carried on, I feel like, for my kids. So it's not just about community, it's about certain types of communities that I want them to understand and be a part of, and to know that they can create again what's not there. So there wasn't a really strong thing for young Black men here. So I and a couple sister friends got together to help motivate our men in our community to create that space for our young men. And they've done that. And it's called the Barbershop. And that's awesome. And so I just want to throw out there to anybody, wherever you are, if you don't have what your child needs, never be afraid to try to start it. It really just takes 1 or 2 like-minded people to get together to do that, to make that happen. And it may not even be in time for your child, but for all the other Black children that are coming along the way. It's so worth doing. Just create it if it's not there for them, because they need it.
Wonderful. Anything wanting to add on that?
That was so, I just want to jump up and kiss you, Dr. G. I wish I knew you when I went to Victoria a year ago.
Oh my
I would have
gosh.
extended my trip. So we're going to talk offline.
Yeah,
because,
next time you're going to come into the sister friend group. We got it. We're ready for you. We're ready.
Listen, but you touched on something with community that really struck me. And I think it's the part that we miss is culture, and the different cultures that we come from. And I think it's very important that we teach our young Black boys coming up and the ones that are men what their culture is, the beauty of their culture, the things that weren't so good in their culture.
That's right.
I have a Trinidadian background, but my son is Canadian, right?
Yeah.
But also there's a lot of different history to Caribbean Black men versus American Black men versus
Absolutely.
Canadian Black men. And I grew up around where Black men were the first Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. You understand what I'm saying? So we grew up with
Jamaican
leaders.
heritage.
Exactly.
Yep.
Our leaders were Black. It's normal for our leaders to be Black. It's only coming up here. Like I was like, what do you mean? You know, it's like a shell shock coming here going like, why is it such a big thing that you guys don't have a Black this or a Black that? We all Black in Trinidad. Whether you're, you know, you're mixed with whatever, whether you're in, it is so important. And the piece about sports, I think, is so integral. I think I learned a lot as a Black mom, and especially for Black single moms, the sports, finding the right sport and finding the right mentors in the sports, because I learned some stuff and I became a stronger mother with my son in sports. I didn't become the, because let's be real, we can be wuss as mom. I don't know if that's a real word, but we can be kind of like mamby-pamby, like kind of like baby them, you know. But, you know, once my son broke a few bones in football and he broke, you know, listen, my son broke his face in grade 9 playing rugby. So trust me, I have become a robust mom now. After that, there's nothing after breaking your face. And then I love the part where you talk about the men and the support system. I think also teaching our young men to be gentlemen. You know, I love women's live, but sometimes it challenges me. I still want my son to be able to open the door. I still want my partner to open the door for me. I still want him to be a gentleman, pull a chair, good morning, good evening, thank you, take off a hat when, you know, those little nuances that make them men of value. And I think we need to find those men who have those values. And I look to married couples as well. I don't look to single parents. I look at Joan and Tony, and I look at how Tony raises his daughter. What kind of son, what kind of husband? Somebody said, what kind of husband is your son going to be? And that made me stop and go, oh boy. Because as a woman, what kind of husband do I want? So I got to raise the husband for somebody else's daughter. I'll leave that right there.
You're dropping the mic, Nicole.
Dropped it right there, Brandon.
Yeah.
Tanya, go ahead.
I think you know, and both Dr. G and Nicole touched on this, is the dearth of mentorship from Black males in the Black community outside of sports. I was so adamant for so long not to put my son in basketball because I feel like that's such a default thing that we do. Is just like, okay, well, that's because that's where the Black men are. They're playing basketball, they're coaching basketball. And I didn't want him to then be this kid whose whole life was wrapped up in basketball. Then the Raptors became the champions. And I was just like, oh, and that defeated the entire purpose. So then he became basketball obsessed anyways. But at least it was external and not just like driven by this whole like, oh, you know, it was him who, my son, I think he was in grade 1 at the time, who was like, Mom, can I play chess? Absolutely. Right. And you know, he was in karate and he tried it out. He did soccer. Like, I want him to try different things. I didn't want him to be a mini stereotype because then it becomes that much harder to break it when they're older. Even Big Brothers, Big Sisters, you know, I loved the organization. It was one of my first jobs out of college, but I think you can only sign them up when your child is 7. And so for me, I'm thinking of like, that impact of the age of how important it is between 3 and 7. And if you don't have people in your life and you don't have men in your life that can mentor your son, like that is such an opportunity. And I'm just like, if I had the energy, I would love to be Dr. G and just create one and create an agency that is focused specifically, because especially too in the Black community, there's tons of teen mentorships, like, oh, the at-risk youth and they're at risk, and you know, these teens in high school. And I'm just like, I don't want to say it's too late because it's never too late. But if we were just able to have an organization that could get to these kids when they're 5, when they're 6, and really work on their emotional intelligence, and as well as their physical abilities and the culture, right? Like those are the things that I would love to see. And I know that there's tons of groups, Ujima House and Young Potential Fathers. I know that there's organizations out there really trying to do it, but there's only so many. But us as women, we can't yell at the men to do it. I mean, shout out to Dr. G, who somehow managed to get the Mandem in formation, but I can't tell the men in the community, you need to do this. It's got to be something that they want to do and they see the value in. And so that's what makes it really difficult. And, I remember even reaching out to other males in my life and stuff like that. And it was really difficult. And so I'm grateful for the ones who have stepped up. And, I do have a partner who's been amazing and really supportive and is really excited. And I'm just like, that's because you're coming in when he's 7 and he's potty trained and it's a little bit easier. But, he's really excited to be a part of his life and do the teachings, of all those things that Nicole mentioned, and integrity, and from a standpoint that I just cannot do it. Again, adamantly agree with Nicole. We are not fathers. I never pretend to be. I'm his mom. He knows that. He knows BMC exists. And, he knows that, okay, I don't have a dad right now, officially according to the government. But, he's got men in his life. He's got his uncles and his cousins even, and stuff like that, who he can kind of look to and say like, oh, I want to be like them and whatnot. And that's super important, but we need way more of it than we have.
Okay. Go ahead. I was going to jump in, but go ahead. It's a ladies conversation. I was just going to drop in something, but go ahead, Dr. G.
I just wanted to follow up on just a couple things you said. I absolutely agree with you in terms of the men in the community have to be the ones who step up. And so the women, we had a girls version of this, girls and femmes with Afro textured hair for about 3 years. And one of the things we noted is we're getting a lot of people to ask us to do that for elementary school. And we just don't have that capacity right now. Right. So it speaks to what you're saying there. But when we first tried to get the men together, it's like, okay, we're not going to do anything. And then we're hanging out because I got 2 boys. So I'm like waiting. I'm like, okay. So I put people together and I'm like, what's going on? And then I'm like, okay, so I'm going to put the date out there and just get you all in a room and then you could take on. And I guess it just really started kicking off about a year ago, but it did. I mean, we did kind of have, as a sister friend group, try to move that ball a bit for them. And there were selfish pieces to that for me because I have 2 sons. But then I said to them, this is all we can do. We are not creating this because I don't understand what it means to be a Black man. I don't walk in that space. That is not my lens. Mm-hmm. And they need you. And now I'm leaving it up to you. And so I know that there's a couple people, it always seems like a couple people who step up. And there's so many more that I hope will join with that. And so I guess I'm agreeing with you. You can't, part of what has happened sometimes in our societies, we've gotten set up that we as women are the ones to carry the Black family. And we can't do that, right? We need our men. We need you. We want you. We don't want to be you. We need you to come into that space and do that. And so I think sometimes it's a bit of unraveling for them as well to realize, hey, the women aren't going to step in. Like, this is for us, by us. And we also need to let go of the reins. So I did, and I let go, and I'm like, please, and I'm praying that you all will do it. And they're doing it, right? But I think it's part of a bit of unlearning as well, that we're supposed to do everything. And that's something I think we all need to detach from. And I just wanted to say one other thing about the sports. I threw everything at my kid and was willing to follow them wherever they went. Basketball happened to be it for them. And that's cool because I never played it. So I ended up loving it, which I always have to explain to parents. I never played the sport because they're like, oh, is he? I go, I know nothing about it. Football, I didn't allow. Like, my son's like, I want to play. I'm like, So, each parent decides what they need and what's best for their kid. But there's always this sense, no matter what I think the sport is, that comes with the Black athlete stereotype that we have to fight, especially if they're also academically inclined, like
Yes.
like that balance, and
Yes.
advocating for them for that. And especially in the spaces where they're not supposed to be, like swimming or hockey or chess, and fighting that and saying, why aren't they supposed to be here? And let them sit with that. Because as a Jamaican person, one of the things that I've noticed is sometimes if we're coming from immigrant backgrounds, and I was raised in the States, so I went back and forth. But what we find here in Victoria is we have parents coming in as first generation, coming from majority culture. So they don't understand what it's like to be racialized or minoritized. And so their kids will come home and say, hey, mom, somebody called me this. And from their perspective, they may be like, well, that's not a big deal. I just want to implore parents who weren't raised in Canada, that when your kid is sharing that with you, even though it may not make sense to you, to please really listen to that and try to advocate for them, because they're not coming from majority space. And it is a big deal, and it will physically and mentally have an impact on them, especially if they don't think they can come to you to talk to you about it. Yeah, I just wanted to put that out there.
All right.
So, Dr. Vibe, I know you really want to go to comments, but I really want to make a point and want something.
Hey, it's your lady show. I'm just steering the ship. You guys are driving because we're going past 1 hour. So you already know that. So go on.
You know, Dr. G, and both Tanya spoke about it, but you know that space where I really want to say to men, we as Black women, we have had no choice but to have the strong Black woman look, the face, everything else. Do not mistake that we do not want your help.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I really want to encourage men, not because, when I ask you once and say, okay, can you help me? And they say, okay, tell your son to give me a call. Why are you acting like you're not a guy? Do you call guys? Why are you expecting the teenage boy or the young man in his 20s to pick up the phone and call you? If he doesn't call you back, call him back. If on 10 times, if you have to, if it really matters to you, you need to call him back. Don't leave it for Black boys and young men to be calling you back. That's unfair to them. That's not what you did. On the sports thing, one of the things with sports, I think that was for me was the exercise, and it wasn't just about the Black man. And then exposing them to music,
and
take them to the theater. We can get comfortable. I know one of the challenges I had coming from the Caribbean, I don't like the cold. I'm a Trini girl. I Trini to the bone.
That's why I live in Victoria.
I don't like the cold. And so I know as a mom in the beginning, that really hindered me because I wasn't going skiing and I wasn't going skating. So we live in Canada. So if you're raising a Black son in a cold country, if you don't like to do the activity, find someone that can help do that activity with them, because it hinders them. Open them up to the horizons that they can be opened up to.
Or move to Victoria where it's warm.
I'm coming.
We're going to talk. It.
I'm coming. I'm coming. And we
don't do that.
I would say to moms and anyone, and this is something I knew to do, but you can get busy as a mom. We have all these. I had great ideas as being a mom. I had all this great stuff I was going to do. Wasn't going to let them drink a lot of apple juice. It would affect their teeth. And then we ended up at the dentist. All those great things. You get tired. Meal preparations, be gentle with yourself, as Dr. G said. But, right? We talk about, we're all business people here on this panel. We write vision boards. Write a vision board for your son, for your daughter. And you do it for yourself, and then get them to do one. Show them what that looks like, because every year let them revisit. What are their goals? Do they want to read 5 books? What do they want to learn about? The history, economics. So you're building that business leader in them. You're building, generational wealth and education and thought processes. And I wish I had done that more. I knew what to do, but I forgot and I got tired and I didn't ask for help. So sometimes you got to stop and say, you know what? I'm getting depressed. I'm getting tired. I'm getting overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. somebody in the village, please help me.
Yeah.
Because and
Teach
if you
them how
see
to
the
reach for
mom
help.
looking strong and not asking for help, any mom that isn't asking for help, you as the village needs to step up and say, Nicole, you know, you looking good, girl. You got all
Yeah.
this kind of stuff. Dr. G,
Yeah.
Tanya, you know, you're rocking this black mom thing. They see you, T, going out there getting some money and stuff, and like they forget like T is a human being that has energy that can be depleted. Ask us, what do you need? How can I help you? And listen to what we say and listen to what we don't say.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. I love
One of
that
the
too.
things that you just I really like, I know, Dr. G, these comments, they're super great. And I actually will refer to one. Someone mentioned swimming, and Nicole referred to it too, especially being here, right?
Mhm.
We live in Canada. You know, summers is when these white kids go to the cottage and they're in summer camps, and you know, we have to teach our kids how to swim. Even if you don't know how to swim, you should learn too. But at the very least, please put your kids in swimming, and like you said, expose them to
Amen.
all these things, the skating and these are the activities that their classmates are going to do. And if they can't do it, then they're going to be left out. They're going to be left behind. They're going to feel like outcasts. And if they're already they're already the chocolate chip and the cookie in their school, then they're not going to, you know what I mean? So like we have to, you know, like Nicole said, like we have to get out of our own mentalities about what it means to do Black things. I know in the summer we love a boat cruise. I know vacation only means going back home to the islands. No, go camping up north. Go rent a cottage. Go walk along the lakes. Go for a hike. Get them a bike. Do the things that they want to do, not just what you think that they should be doing as Black kids. I think it's important both. They need both the Black culture. They need to know who they are. They need to be able to stand strong in that because they will be attacked. However, we are raising these kids in Canadian society, and we know what the definition of Canadian is and what those activities are. And we have to make sure that we are giving them a chance. You know, I took my son I signed him up for those City of Toronto things, skating. He hated it. But it could have been the teacher. It could have just been whatever it was. And so, you know, I have a friend of mine, he takes his son skating. My kid and his son are the same age. So he takes them. And it's a way different experience for him. And at least he's getting on the ice. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to put him in hockey because expensive and no, but at the end of the day, and also racism, but at the very least, you know, I've exposed it to him so that when he's getting older and he makes friends with, you know, because you can't choose who they're going to be friends with, be like, hey, mom, you know, everyone's going to this skating birthday party. Can I go? I want him to be able to go and feel like he can go. Oh, okay, there's a swimming party in the summer when we're allowed to, you know, not be socially distant anymore. Can I go? Yes, I can feel confident in him going and having a healthy respect and knowledge of the water. We have to do these things. Like it's not a negotiable, unfortunately.
The swimming isn't, because that's to me not a sport, it's a life skill.
Yes.
It's like driving. You just have to know. It's still amazing to me. My mother grew up on an island and didn't know how to swim, right? Because she lived in the country and stuff. But I do want to say one thing, and that is I'm trying to teach my children and just other Black kids. I have this piece called Black Enough. Article thing I wrote, that whatever comes out of you is Black because you are. So I think it's really important for us not to, there's our cultural pieces, but I'm trying to get them to understand that Canada is a multicultural country, and they often say, oh, Canadian this, which just means white ethnic that, right? That if you're going to be playing hockey, then that's your right because you get to do that, right? You get to go up the mountains or whatever, that's being Black. Because we have too many kids who think, oh, if I listen to classical music, then that means I'm not Black enough. Oh, if I like country, I must not be Black enough. If I like to eat a croissant, then I'm not Black enough because it's not chitlin. You know, and that's just buying into that white supremacist ideology of Black people have a way to be, and we measure each other on that mess.
Yes.
Right? Like, do you dance like a white person? Like that kind of stuff. that we need to just dismantle all of that. That if your child is a Black child, whatever they do is damn well Black enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, yeah.
Amen.
I know there's a third question there somewhere.
Not the actual applause. Don't kill me.
Dr. Vibe.
That right
I just
there,
have
like,
one more thing I want to make sure I say because I don't want to lose it.
Don't
We
worry,
also have to deal with the intersectionalities in our community, though. We have a lot of Black men who may end up, identifying in different ways and spaces. And if we get real, we don't deal with that.
Nope.
And so, especially being raised here, whether that's being gay, bisexual, asexual, non-binary, transgender, etc. And if we get real about who gets targeted in our communities by police, who gets targeted by ourselves, especially coming from whether West Indian or our spaces, that the suicidality rate and the violence rate against Black youth who don't fit in that Black stereotypical male box is atrocious and something that we really need to deal with. So it becomes really important when I resonated with what you said about, I want my child to raise my son to be a good husband. And what does that mean? And it means about truth and loyalty. And it means, opening a door. But I don't know who he'll be opening the door to. I just want him to make sure he does it, right? Like, are the values and the things that we want our children to be raised with, they can be for anybody. And I just want to make sure we don't miss that point when we're talking about our young sons, because I think that's something that really keeps a lot of them on the DL.
Okay. All right. I'm going to just take a quick pause because you ladies have been dropping knowledge bombs for the last few minutes. So I'm going to give you a few minutes break. I'm going to catch up with comments and give a little bit of a personal insight to add positive value, hopefully, to what you've been sharing. So I'm going to right quick in regards to comments here. Ryan saying, I'm encouraging my children to be actors so they can be positive reps for other Black children. Jonah saying, you have to be flexible with kids. As Nicole says, yes, listen deeply to what they are saying. You can get messages. How She Hustles. Hey, How She Hustles. Love this. Great chat. More of this. Ryan says, family and community are important with my children. Also support and guidance. Serena said, my village has changed and those who have exited, I am glad. If they couldn't be there for me as a person, then they really couldn't be there for my son either. Don says, love the barbershop name, create space, make it happen. Certainly important. Pushari saying, the beauty of our cultures, freedom to create. Serena says, when Dr. D brought up sports, it brought up a memory. My son loves swimming. Not a lot of kids of color here in that sport. He had a teacher that was not right for him, and I had advice for him and made waves in our swim school. She was not good with boys of color, and especially boys of color with special needs. Donna saying, I'm a sports mom, and it certainly helped my children and opened doors. It taught them discipline and exposed them to other cultures and interact with everyone. Yes, ages 3 to 7 is crucial. Out here, some mentor programs don't even start until double digits. And that's she's in the Washington area. She also says, my grandmother has told me over and over not to force my son to talk to his father, and I stopped. My son is getting to an age where he sees a lot more clearly and will openly tell me that he doesn't want to call his father at times. He is realizing who is there for him and who is not. As Ryan said earlier, quote, fathers be fathers. Thankful for the men who are in our lives that are way more consistently than who he looks up to. Okay, Joan. Yes, Tanya, children of color, mainly African-American kids here in the States. Oh, that was Serena saying that. Sorry, Serena. In the States, drown the most every year because they don't know how to swim or have basic knowledge even to tread water. Wow. Rachel says, my mom grew up in the country, St. Anne, and doesn't know how to swim either. She made sure to put us in swimming school lessons, though. And Serena says, I love basketball and played growing up. My son doesn't like it. And at first, I was a little upset. But when he found his love and passion for swimming, I saw it differently. He woke me up. I want him to do what he loves to do and not what I loved growing up. He's going to break down barriers with his love of swimming. Maybe inspire more kids of color to get out in the water and learn how to swim. I just want to add, as a fatherhood and manhood advocate, one of the best ways to learn about your Black boys is play. Play is so critical.
Yes.
And to the point is, and you can tell them that, and I did a lot of refereeing. I did more refereeing than playing a sports, and I love that I was a referee, because taking part in sports for your young boys or your young sons, leadership, how to get along with people. Some of them they're not going to like, how to be disciplined. And the best lessons for me that are learned from sports is how much sports is no different than real life. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to work with people. Some of them you like, some of them you don't like. And with the fatherhood piece, a quick thing I say to every father is I say, look, if you have a son, especially a son or a daughter, you're not going to probably live as long as they are. And hopefully after you're dead and gone, they're living in a house. And let's hope either it's a house, apartment, condominium. Hopefully, they're going to have a picture of you in that house. And then if someone asks them who is in that picture, what are they going to say?
Love it.
I
love it. Love it. Love it.
So much. Yes, absolutely.
So,
And I think that that's part of it when you're a single parent. And a lot of times a lot of moms get accused of poisoning their sons or their children against the dads, and I'm just like, kids are smart. Kids can pick up on things. They know, especially if you're just like, okay, it's Sunday, it's 12 o'clock, your dad's going to come and pick you up. He doesn't roll in until 1 o'clock. Maybe he doesn't roll in at all, and he does that once, he does it twice. Like, what do you think he's going to be able to, what do you think that child is going to pick up about you? That they're not important to you, that you're an afterthought. So, it's not so much, yes, I will never say that there are no Black mothers who are angry and frustrated at the plight of the relationship that they have with their co-creator. But I'm just like, more times often than not, it's the kids figuring it out for themselves. And I'm just like, at the end of your life, do you want to be surrounded with love and have your children in front of you and beside you, or or the opposite? And that's a choice, and you're the adult in the situation, right? Like, if your child doesn't want to hear from you or doesn't want to talk to you, then you have to work doubly hard to fix it. It's up to you to fix. And it, all the blame that Black moms get in terms of, or Black single mothers specifically get in terms of like poisoning these children, etc. I'm just like, these kids see so many things, they observe and they absorb. That's why it's so important for me to advocate for my son to be emotionally healthy, right? Even the other day, he was just like, Mom, you're really hard on me. My son is 7. And I was kind of taken aback. I was just like, well, this is a very grown-up thing for you to say. And so I was like, okay, well, let's have a conversation about that, and we did. And I've always said, like, hey, you are allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be hurt. You're allowed to be mad. You can say whatever you want to say about me in your journal. You can talk to any of your aunties and uncles about me. You're just not allowed to be disrespectful, right? That is the thing. That has been the rule in our house since you could talk. And I think that is probably the best thing I could possibly do. I never speak on the person who contributed his other chromosomes. I don't speak of him, because he will learn, and by default of who shows up in his life, what that person is all about. I don't have to say a word. And I haven't. I don't put energy towards it. And kids figure it out. I really wish that we would give children way more credit. And it's not, these teenagers who are smart and astute. I'm like, these kids, these 5, 6, 7-year-olds, these babies that come out of the womb know how to use an iPhone. Like, they are smart, and they are observant, and they are, all they just need is the right people around them to become really good good human beings. But I need to, it's my job as a parent to put those people around him and make sure that they're contributing to his overall growth.
Dr. Vibe, I just want to touch on something Tanya said and also what Dr. G said. And I agree with you, T. It's, men have to recognize children see. But I say to moms, remember, children learn by what they see before by what they hear. So you got to walk your talk. And I also say to moms, especially if you're a single parent, um, be careful speaking negative to your sons, especially sons about their fathers. Find healthy ways, and I know Dr. G is going to come in here in the back end. Find healthy ways to have healthy conversations about dealing with any rejection, dealing with any feelings of hurt when they don't show up. Moms, you have to find ways to deal with that. And I also say to moms, don't when a man wants to be involved in your children's life, unless they are abusive, even if they haven't given you the child support, find ways to allow them to be involved. Because I can tell you, a man being a good role model, even though he may not have been a good partner, doesn't mean that he cannot be a good father. Do not mix up your relationship issues with him being a father.
Yes.
That's the first part of what I want to say. That's so key. And we have to teach them how to deal with offense, because that's their first thing. How we deal with offense, how we deal with hurt is how they're going to watch it. Dr. G also spoke about, accepting, where they're coming from. I think it's very important, whether you're married or single, that your sons in particular know that you love them no matter what they do. Because your son could be picture perfect today and get in some really crazy stuff tomorrow. You never know what can happen to your child. And so it is imperative from the foundation that they know that no matter what they do, you will always love them. And what does that mean? That your love is not conditional. And if you don't know what unconditional love is, you got to look at it for yourself. And moms, you need to do your own self-examination, and don't put your fears onto your children. That the great example is the whole swimming thing. Be very careful. Do your self-work, because when you don't do your self-work, it is going to affect your sons. And I know we're addressing sons. I'm not even talking about daughters, because there's lots of programs for daughters, but there's not enough for sons. So let your sons know that you love them, and be very careful in their formative years. Do not dismiss when you see them getting depressed. Do not dismiss certain things as growing pains. Especially boys, we can ignore some things that can look like, which is actually them becoming unwell, and dismiss it. Well, he's just a boy, or he's just a teenager. I caution you, go deeper. Find out, ask them the questions. If you don't want to ask about suicide, do you feel like committing suicide? Ask them, how do you feel about life today? Do you want to live? If you see those depressing things coming, learn about mental health. It is imperative for boys. They go under the radar, and the suicide rate is so high. So don't let it go unnoticed. And if we don't speak about and there's mental health, and then there's mental illness. And I know that's a whole nother conversation, not for today, but I think we really need to be mindful about the mental health of our boys. It's very deep, and we don't deal with it.
I do think that's going to be a conversation, and a great one that's needed. Mental health is so critical, and racism plays such a piece in that. And especially Black mental health. There's a reason why we don't live as long. And many of us have been taught also not to go and seek the help that we need, and that's part of it, that we're weak in some way or something's happening. And I like how you said that, I've said to my son, do you need somebody to talk to who's not me? Mm-hmm. And that really was helpful. And he's like, yeah, and was able to get him that space, Unfortunately, he had a friend a couple years back who killed himself, who seemed to be perfect. And it really shook everybody. And you never want to see your child at 16, getting dressed to bury his friend. And I tell you, for the next 3 weeks, I don't think I slept. I'd get up at 2 a.m, see if he was breathing, just open the door, look at him, to the point where he finally said, Mom, I'm not going to kill myself, right? Like, because everything seemed fine with that child. He did not, there's some kids that I'm like, if I heard about it, I'd be like, yeah, but this kid was not that kid. And so it makes you start to think about your own as well. And I'm already thinking about my son's safety when he runs outside at night. And I just had to have another talk with him. I'm like, I cannot have you running outside at midnight. I know that you're, but you got to be doing it during the day. And, there's just, and letting him know where kind of I'm at sometimes as well, I think is important. One mom had said she's not sure when she knows the answer to something. I think it's so important for us to be honest with our kids, to tell them sometimes we don't know. And that helps them. So they don't feel like they have to know everything, that we don't know everything. And if we can illustrate that to them and show them that we can also admit when we don't know things, and then how are we going to figure it out? And that there are days, my kids have seen me just cry some days because I just tell them it's an overwhelming day, not so they can carry it, but so they also know Mom isn't always like this, and that life does get hard. And I want them to know that that's okay, because we also don't teach our boys to emote. They can't show tears, and the only kind of thing is they have to be either angry or quiet, right? And that's dangerous for them as well. So being able to have spaces where if their tears well up, to let them flow and be okay. And I think also sometimes we talk too much, that sometimes my kid just needs me to sit there and not ask 1,000 questions and analyze, and just be okay with just being there and sitting with him. And I found sometimes when I do that, he starts talking a little bit, but sometimes he just wants me to be near, and that's enough. And I think that's important for us to understand as moms too, just as parents, that sometimes they just need us to sit there, not to say or ask, but just to be near them,
Okay. Well, ladies,
I want to give you that round of applause again. Like that was like, yeah, like that was like. You want to wrap us up, don't you, Doctor? I told you.
I know. No, you
2
guys.
hours. I told you, Doctor.
Because
I'm hungry.
we still
get a
have.
dinner
I
break at
told
least?
you.
You still have one question left.
We have one question left.
She left.
You still got time, but let me just quickly catch up. Liberty says that's one of the blessings of this stay-at-home time. As an entrepreneur, having our kids watch us work. I watch my daughter whip out and set up a tripod to do FaceTime with her aunt.
Love it.
Yes, and I didn't intentionally teach her. She says, "P.S." Serena says these kids get it. Their spirits know who is for them and who simply is not.
Yes.
She also says, "Yes, Nicole. My mother never badmouthed my father in front of me, and he was not in my life. And because of her, I learned not to do that with my son."
Yeah.
Liberty loves the question, how do you feel about life today? I think that's not only good for Black sons, that's good for everybody.
Yeah.
That's everybody. Joan says, this is such important for single moms. Thank you for having these women share all that they did, and hope it helps some brothers. Oh yeah, they've been helping some brothers. Don't worry, we ain't done yet. We got one more question left. So don't think we gone yet. We gone yet.
I need a dinner break soon though. So
yes, okay. This is gonna be last.
Be quick.
You guys are driving the ship. I'm just steering it. So you can't be that hungry.
I can be hungry.
Okay, all right. We're gonna close.
You see, Tanya, I knew. I looked at the 4 questions and I knew. I said, he's got us. There's just no way this hour was going to work. But go ahead. I'm going to put myself back on mute.
That's all right. No worries. So last conversation piece. Closing out. What suggestions do you have for Black mothers, Black fathers, and the Black, I like to say, environment in regards to raising Black boys? Who wants to hit that closing conversation piece first?
Nicole, do it.
No, man. Tanya's going to do it. She's gonna start.
What?
Yes, because you're so quiet.
Quiet.
Tanya, the black mom is having a hot flash. Do it. I got
Okay. True. We couldn't even let Nicole have a fan for this thing. So my advice for Black moms, Black fathers, the Black community, overall society in terms of these Black boys, I think we just have to change what we think we know. And I'm better with analogies, so I'll use this analogy. So right now, there's a lot of racial reckoning happening. Now everyone's like, how do we talk to children about race? And, the things that we're telling, non-Black people is, you have to arm yourself. You have to put your own tools in your toolbox before you can even go to your children to start have this conversation. And the thing is, there is a lot of unlearning that needs to happen, and that is happening right now. What we think we know about what it is to be a Black man, right? And Dr. G touched on it. We have to think about all the intersections, all the interests, all the ways that we as a community harm ourselves, right? We tell boys don't cry, to toughen up, that they can only play sports. We call them sissies if they want to do something that's leaning more towards feminine, right? We don't forecast into the future, like Nicole said, in terms of you're going to be married someday, and it could be to a man or it could be to a woman. But and I joke about this, I don't want someone being like, who raised you? Because I will be like, I did, and I did a very damn good job. Thank you very much. Right? Like, I don't want my son's future partner to be like, who did this to you? And I think we just need to be really open and mindful what these Black men are, what these Black boys are going to grow up into is going to be a direct result of how we parent them, how we teach them, what we show them, what we allow them to feel. And I think that, if we do this now, and I'm in a great position where my son is 7 and, he's not set in his ways. He's not a grown man as yet. Can be like, okay, let's talk about how you're feeling, implement all these awesome, ideas of the vision board. I love that. And also, like, you can't give me any type of like stationary project to do, because then I'm just like, yes. And asking, how do you feel about life today? Because that is the type of question I can ask my son. And he might just say, fine. But I know there's going to be a day where he's going to come out of nowhere and give me this like whole soliloquy. And I'm going to look at him and be like, who are you, little tiny human being? And encourage that, and encourage him to be curious and to ask questions. And, when he's, when he reverts into being, that little boy, and he still is a little boy, but when he reverts back and he's just like, hey, can we sleep together? Can we watch a movie today and curl up and watch Disney Plus? Say yes. And if your son is 17 and asking to sit on the couch with you and watch Disney Plus, say yes. Right. And I think it's those little things that how we show up is going to be how they show up into the world. We cannot fix the world for them, but all we can do is prepare them for the world that we hope that they're going to inherit. And so that's my 2 cents.
Dr. G and Nicole, who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Okay.
I'm going to so I don't forget. First off, get elders involved in our kids' lives. And that's even if they've passed. My father, that's one of my sad pieces, is that my dad isn't here to see my sons in a physical sense, but I keep him alive. And he even puts a gift under the tree, and he transitioned 8 years ago. I play pieces of his voice, or I share story with my children about the things that he said. I think a lot of times we forget the wisdom of our elders and the stories they've passed on to us. And I think it's our duty to pass those on to our children as well. And it's really important for us to have those conversations. So as much and when you can, get your children around people who have wisdom. And it's not Googleable wisdom. You know what I mean? It's life wisdom. They carry so much with them. And I feel like, especially in societies like this, that in many, especially white space, there's not that reverence, I feel, the way I do when I'm in Indigenous space and in other minoritized spaces. But our elders, get your children involved with their elders. Second, if you have young kids, with my kid, when they were younger, I would ask them how they felt by the weather. Were they having a sunny day, a cloudy day? Was it a little bit rainy? And they seem to get into that, or, little smiley faces or something like that. But just remember, not just words, like different ways that we can have them talk. Please get involved in your kids' school. It was said at the very beginning, and I don't want to get lost. One of the reasons I was able to deal with that situation with my son is because I was a major person on our pack. And this is especially for those of you who are going into middle school and high school. They like to make you think that parents aren't necessary. They're more necessary than ever at those ages. So please, please, please get involved. And there are not a lot of parents who do. So you're going to get to know the principal. We got an apology from the principal. Like, please get involved with your pack. To that end, we're actually having a conversation for us, for something we call Conversations for Us, just for Black folk. And the focus on Tuesday evening is going to be how you can advocate for your child starting in the fall. So please get involved with your kids' school. Third, be really intentional with their modeling. I don't think you need to go far to find Black sport and Black acting models. It's really about finding models for all the other areas that we're talking about, other areas of maybe sports that you don't see us a lot in, areas of medicine, engineering, business, law. Fill up your children with that knowledge, because they're not going to get it anywhere else but from your house and from your spaces. So if they're interested in classical music, find me a couple of Black classical musicians. If they're interested in, electrical engineering, my son was interested in astronomy. I'm like, tell me a Black astronomer. And he knew. I was like, damn, okay. Find me a woman astronomer too, right? So please think about adding that. And you can start that at a very young age with the kind of books that you're reading to your children, the kind of shows they're watching. Third or fifth, I think, don't buy into the 18-year-old end, that when kids turn 18, 19, they're adults, that's it. They still need us. Our children are always going to need us. Our relationship with them is going to shift, and it's going to be maybe less like that and more coming like that. But I still need my dad, and I'm 50, and I wish he was there for me to throw some stuff at him. Our children are always going to need us, and that's part of us being Black families. So this kind of artificial 18, 19, you're out on your own, I don't buy into that at all. I want them to always know they can pick up the phone and talk to me and ask me for advice. They may not take it, but I want them to ask me. So I would say don't buy into that at all. And also that we're raising wonderful Black young men, and the qualities that we're looking for are not in a box. It's qualities that we want all humans to have, right? And I think if you kind of keep that at the forefront, and something my father said to me when I went off to college, is I asked him if he was going to miss me. And I was crying like, Daddy, are you going to miss me? Aren't you going to miss me? And he said to me, yes, my dear, but you must go, because you're not mine, you're thine. And I've always remembered that I've been gifted this incredible gift of having these two spirits in my life, but they're not mine, right? They're not mine to mold into what I want them to be. They're thine. And I'm just here, I feel, to provide a space and guidance and opportunity and accessibility the best that I can. But that's the thing that I just want you to remember, is that how do you see these young boys that you're raising? Do you see them as yours, or as gifted spirits that are in your space for this period of time? And I think if you think about it that way, it can kind of shift certain things. in the ways that we may respond to them, in the ways that we love them. So I just wanted to end with that.
Okay, Nicole, follow that up. Good luck.
You know what? Tanya and Dr. G were on a very similar tangent to myself. And if I look down, it's because I definitely wrote out some of the things I wanted to say. And purpose, if I were to pick up at the back end of Dr. G, it's about purpose. We are all born with a purpose, and we are a gift to the earth, and we are a gift to life. And so, how do we impart that and get our young ones to know that? And so, the first thing I say to anyone is your values. What are your values? And ensuring that the values that you have and that you would like your child to exude, that you speak about it, and then you make sure that you're acting it out. Integrity, resilience. How do you deal with change? How do you, kindness, what that means, gentleness, what that means. Dr. G touched on what kind of person do you want them to be. So if you know what kind of person that you want them to be, you got to teach them how to be that person. Don't just tell them, show them how to be leaders, how to walk in forgiveness, how to walk in unconditional love. What is that? What does that look like? Unpack it with them. Don't just drop it on them. um, the life skills, teaching our sons life skills, the basic things, how to be a gentleman. I mentioned that before, but even cleaning, cooking, taking care of themselves, so that as they get older, doing their laundry, being self-sufficient, because we don't know what life can throw at us. You can become ill as a mom. You can become ill as parents. Even as they go off to college and they go off to, getting their own places, you want them to be resilient. What does that look like? And Tanya spoke on something that is very important in my estimation here, is the EQ. And it's so hard because each child is different. Each boy is different. So how do you get the emotional intelligence out of your sons, as well as the, intelligence to go through academics, and recognizing that not everybody's a doctor, not everybody's a lawyer, that trades are good, that no matter what profession they pick, make sure they do it well. My grandmother always used to say, if you're going to make sugar cake, make sure you make the best sugar cake that you're going to make. If you're going to be a garbage man, make sure you do it well. It is all about the integrity and leadership. And if you are spiritual and if you believe in God, show that to your son. What does that look like? If you believe in prayer, teach him that the foundations of that. Have those intentional conversations in the morning and in the night. How are you closing out your day? And wake up with gratefulness. And I end with this. And it's about purpose, and it's about foundations. When we build, if an architect is going to build a building, the taller it is, the deeper the foundation. The more you need it to withstand, the more reinforcement you got to give it. And so you got to think of parenthood as an architect, as building a building that has to withstand storms of life, that has to withstand high winds, tornadoes, hurricanes, that has to withstand somebody just coming and leaning on the building, that has to withstand somebody spitting on it. How do you deal with offense? You have to build those foundations for, a building has to deal with cold air or extreme hot weather. Depending on the country you're in, you may have sandblast. If you think of your life, and as your son's life and as your child's life, like a building, what you have to do to put in place, and you translate it to their personality and the personality traits and the things that we need, it will make you stop and think. You have to be, and Dr. G mentioned it before, you have to be intentional, and you have to take the same time that you take with other things. You have to purposefully do that with your sons. And so I just want to make sure that I get everything in there. And I think I have, because I don't need to repeat anything else Tanya and Dr. G has said. I think we kind of wrapped it up in education and mentorship, getting active with your children, being emotionally there for them, teaching them the life skills, and being present. And as a mom, and as a Black mom, being self-compassionate and taking time for self-care, and surrounding yourself, even if it's one person in your life that can pour out to you, asking for when you need help. And for those that are listening to us, don't just look at these strong Black women you're seeing here today. Send us a meal sometimes, you know, send us some flowers, send us a candle, you know. Don't just look at all these Black moms getting it and doing it right. We are resilient by nature. We have been leading while bleeding, but we have a lot of healing to do, especially as Black moms. So, Dr. Vibe, I just want to say thank you for creating this space where that was safe and that we can share the love. And I know Tanya, but now I have another new sister, Dr. G. You and I are going to be doing some shows together. So I look forward to the friendships.
Well, absolutely my pleasure. I like to create safe and brave spaces. So I believe that this was a safe and brave space for everyone, whether they were sharing or in the comments. I have to say thank you so much. 10 seconds for each one of you. 15 seconds. Where can people contact you? Nicole, first.
Wait, I was on mute. Okay. Instagram and Twitter, Victory Speaks 7. Email victoryspeaks7@gmail.com. Keeping it simple. Facebook, Victory Speaks 77 because the 7 was gone. And victoryspeaks.com.
All right. Tanya.
Easy peasy, blackmomsconnection.com. The Facebook group is Black Moms Connection. We also have a public Facebook page. We're on Instagram. And yeah, follow. And, you know, if you have, you want to email us, info@blackmomsconnection.com.
Dr. G from the left coast.
oneloveconsulting.com. Please visit that. You'll find resources there. Also, you can find us on Twitter. And I wanted to also just give a shout out that starting this Sunday, Caribbean Edge Kids for kids and families started out. So you all may want to look at that. I do have resources on my website as well. And you can email me at drg@oneloveconsulting.com.
Wonderful. I would like to thank Serena, Liberty, Sylvia, Sarah, Joan, Rachel, so many people, Dawn, Fraser, Ryan, Fiona, Claude. Thanks everyone who watches live or on the replay. It's much appreciated, not taken for granted. As I say, I'm the host of Epic Conversations, and I am Epic Conversations. We just had one right here. And if you missed it, your wood is wet, but that's why there's replays. If you want to touch base with me, all you have to do is go to my website, thedrvibeshow.com. Loved it. And again, this is Black Canada Talking on most Sunday afternoons at 5 p.m. So please follow the Dr. Vibe Show. And if you have any guest suggestions, or if you're a Black Canadian, you want to jump on, go to my website, make a request. I'd like to say, closing out, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions. And I'm going to say aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. But one other thing, and I do parenting courses for fathers. And one of the key things I tell fathers, and this is for all parents, no matter what age your child is, it's not how much time you spend with your child. It's what do you do with the time you spend with your child. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith. And also big thanks to BIA Media for another great production job. Bye-bye, everybody. Be well and keep the faith.